Hey there, I'm Douglas from Draftbit. In this video, we're going to be exploring the linear gradient component. This is a powerful feature that allows you to create visually appealing backgrounds using smooth color transitions, enhancing your app's UI. You can think of the linear gradient as a customizable view that lets you style your app with a gradient background, whether for specific elements, custom buttons, cards, or even an entire screen. First, let's look at how to add this component. Head over to the left side panel on the component picker, click Add, then search for Linear Gradient. Then you're going to add the linear gradient. And the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to add a button inside the linear gradient. We're going to remove the button's background. And then we're going to go to the linear gradient, and then we're going to remove this flex one, which tells the linear gradient to take up as much space as possible. So now we have a button that has some linear gradient. Then what we want to do, we want to add another linear gradient. But then this one is going to wrap around the entire screen. And what I want to do, I want to add some padding. So we now have a linear gradient that's taking up the entire view. Then we have a linear gradient that's like a button. So as you can see, the linear gradient just acts like a normal view. But then the only difference is now we can customize it. So if we go to our linear gradient, so for now we'll just call it the button. So if we go to our button, we go to styles, we notice we have some component specific styles. Color 1, color 2, and color 3. So color 1, this is the starting color of your gradient. For example, if we set it to a red color, you will notice that the top or the starting point takes this color. So let's go ahead, make this red. You notice the first color or the starting point becomes red. Then we have color 2. This defines the midpoint color of the gradient. So if we set it to another color, you'll see that the gradient will transition from red to this color that we pick. So if I come here, then I'm going to pick another color that I want. Yeah, let's go with this color. You'll notice it goes from red, then it goes to this amber color. So it's like a transition. It's like a smooth transition. Then we have an option to pick a third color. So this is the ending color of your gradient. So let's set it to like a blue. And then now notice we go from color 1 to color 2 to color 3. And it's like a smooth transition. So this is the basic concept of a linear gradient. You can experiment with these colors to match your app's theme or design. Simply click the color picker and you can pick a color that you want. And the same thing that we did here, we can do it to this main linear gradient that we have. We can go to the first color, then red, then let's do a darker red, right? Then let's do an even darker red. So we go from light red to like middle red to then like a darker red. And you can see the bigger it becomes, the more it can change its position. So on this button, it's more of like red on the left, then the middle color on the middle, then blue on the right. But then the bigger our screen becomes, it's now more of like top left, then it's like middle left, then it's like bottom right. So it just starts to change a bit. And I'll show you how we can control these directions. So now that we've looked at how to style this gradient, let's now look at the configurations. And on configuration, we have component name. Just like all components in Draftbit, we can change the component name, and this helps us identify this linear gradient inside of our component tree. So naming it linear gradient 2, linear gradient, that becomes a bit confusing. So this we can rename it to linear gradient button, then linear gradient container. So we can just be creative with the namings. Then we have start X, start Y, end X, and end Y. So these are just the positions you're controlling where the gradient starts and where the gradient ends. So here you're controlling where the gradient starts. So X will be horizontal, then Y will be vertical. Same for end. X will be horizontal, Y will be vertical. So X is going to be this part, then Y is going to be on the vertical axis. And by default, it starts at the position of top left corner. So that's 0, 0. So that's going to be top left corner. So that's where it starts. And you can even see the first color that we picked was this bright red. And you can see that the bright red starts at the top left corner. So we can play around with this to change where it's going to start. You can make this 100. Right, and you can see it changed its position. I can also make this 100. And by doing so, notice that we now get that straight line where the bright red is on the left, the darker red is in the middle, then the darkest red is on the right. So here we can play around with these directions to get the kind of layout that we want. And then X and Y, these define the end position of the gradient. For example, setting X to 100 and Y to 100, make the gradient stretch diagonally across the screen from top left to bottom right. So we get an effect where it goes from top left to bottom right. So that's why now everything is straight. If we put 100, 100, 100, 100, everything becomes straight, and we get that effect that we got from the button where it's left, then middle, then right. So you're able to play around with these styles. So just go ahead, play around with these styles until in your design you get what you want. Then lastly, we have data, which just as a conditional display. It's not really necessary for this component. In Draftbit, most components have this, and if you want to hide this for whatever reason, you can come in here and you can display it conditionally. So if the value is true, it shows. If the value is false, it hides. And there you have it. We've explored how to use the linear gradient component in Draftbit to create a beautiful customizable gradient for your application. You've learned how to add and style the gradient button, apply a full screen gradient background, and configure gradient properties for maximum control. With these tools, you can enhance your app design, create eye-catching visuals effortlessly. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.